Hey guys, Dan here for BladeReviews.com, and today I'm going to be tackling the Buck Vantage series of knives. And I do mean tackle because we've got two different sizes, we've got three different trim levels, we've got some special editions of the knife that recently came out that I'm not going to even be considering here in this review, and we've just got a lot of ground to cover, and I'm going to try and do it clearly, succinctly, and hopefully have a good time while we're doing it. So let's dive on in. Let's start things off with a size comparison, actually. So what I've got here, I've got a full-size Benchmade Griptilian, and then I've got a Benchmade Mini Griptilian. And what I like about this size comparison is the fact that, well, the knives are fairly similar in size, and everything here is made in the USA. And that's pretty much it. You know, they look kind of similar too. So I thought that it would make a nice little entry for our video here, and I want to do a couple specs, not a whole lot here, but what we've got for our large Vantage is a 3¼ inch long blade and a weight of 4 ounces. For our small Vantage, we have a 2¾ inch long blade and a weight of 2.3 ounces. So I think both of these knives would make good choices for EDC. That is really primarily what I'd classify them as, and I think you'll probably agree with me as we work our way through the review. So to start us off, I want to tell you first of all what I have here. And so what I've got is a large Vantage in the Pro trim level, so that's like their most expensive version of the knife. And then we've got a small Vantage in their Select level of trim, which is their least expensive version of the knife. So got a little bit of everything here. They've got one more version, the Avid, which I do not have, and that is sort of their middle of the road model. So it's interesting. I've got more details on all this stuff on my blog post, so if this is kind of confusing or whatever, I just recommend checking that out. But anyhow, let's take a look at the blade, and what we've got here is a nice drop point shape, a nice simple blade with a high hollow grind and a really nice sweeping belly here. I like the amount of belly you get, and I like the tip on this knife. You're looking at 3 to 3.5 millimeter thick blade steel, and it does form a nice functional tip. You've got plenty of steel going all the way up there, and I think this is a great choice for EDC. You're just going to get a lot of use with a blade shape like this. It's going to slice well. You're going to be able to get some penetration out of it for digging into boxes and stuff, and it's you know, it's just a good choice all around, I think. Now the blade shape for the small version is exactly the same. Where we start to see some differences here are in the steel. So with our Vantage Pro, what we've got is S30V, and I'll tell you, I'm a huge fan of S30V. I was very excited to find S30V in this knife, especially given the price and the fact that it was made in the USA. You're looking at around $60 for this large Vantage Pro, and USA Construction, S30V. I mean, you just don't see that. And, well, except for, I guess, maybe the Spyderco Native, but I'll tell you, I was very, very pleased to see S30V, and it's held up really well for me. I've got a lot of experience with this steel. Just one of the best that you can currently purchase for any kind of reasonable amount of money. So big fan of S30V. For our small version here, we've got 420 high carbon, 420 HC, and you can see it's been given a slightly different finish here. If the knife appears kind of dirty, it's not. It's actually, that's the way it came from the factory. I think they just, they roughed it out a little bit faster. With the S30V, you get a much nicer blade finish. But my thoughts on the steel itself, I actually have a fair amount of experience with 420 HC for a little beater knife, for a little utility knife that I don't particularly care too much about. It's good for those kinds of dirty jobs where I may not want to use a nice pocket knife, but if you're talking about if I had to have one knife in my pocket, I probably wouldn't pick one with 420 HC just because it doesn't hold its edge particularly well. It's a softer steel. It's easy to sharpen, but it's also easy to lose that edge. The Avid model, their mid-road version of the knife, is probably like $10 or $15 more, but you get Sandvik 13C26, and I find that that's a much better steel, and I would definitely recommend at least getting up to the Avid level. But for $60, this is a great steel. This is a great buy, I think. Okay, let's take a look at the handles here, and again we're going to start off with the full-size version. For the Pro, what we've got are these really nice G10 scales. They've been CNC machined, and they've got this kind of interesting flowing design which sort of matches the overall curves of the knife. And you've got a nice flow through construction. You've got a single pillar, and you've got this small back spacer, and it's really been well done here. Everything's screwed together. One thing I'd like to see, if possible, and I realize that we're working with a $60 budget and a USA-made knife and nice materials, but if they could mill these liners out, that would be nice here, especially on this large version. I don't care so much on the small one, but for the large, at 4 ounces, it does feel pretty substantial. And next to some of my other knives, you can definitely feel a little bit of difference in weight. It's not a deal breaker, but just something I'd like to see, a little point of constructive criticism, perhaps. But all in all, I think the construction of the handle is very nice. For our small version, we've got the same style of construction here. It's just been shrunk down. The only real difference is, first of all, you've got thinner liners, and they're smaller, so you've got a much lighter knife. But you've also got a FRN scale here, so a sort of reinforced plastic scale instead of G10, which also reduces the weight too, I might add. If you're looking at the Avid version, that's going to have a material, handle material known as, I believe it is diamond wood, and that's what Buck calls it. It's some sort of composite that I think is proprietary to Buck. It looks pretty cool in the pictures, but I confess I haven't handled it myself. I'm sure it'd be a nice little upgrade over FRN. But again, you get a nice handle construction here. Okay, let's take a quick look at the pocket clip, and both of these knives have really nice deep carry clips. Let me get the large one out here, and you can see, so nice and simple, really clean. I like the finish they applied there. It's sure, a blackened finish is always nice for discreet carry, but for a knife like this, it would just look out of place, and it carries really deep, and it's tip up ambidextrous carry, and I just think it's really nice. I like the clip a lot. I'm not always a super big deep carry clip guy, but I think people who are will enjoy this knife a lot, and I admit I don't have any problems at all with this clip. So let's take a look at the ergonomics. And for the large knife, what we've got here is a very good size handle. I can get a 4-finger grip on there, no problem. And you've got actually probably not the most comfortable handle. In my experience, I found the Vantage to be a little sharp around the corners. Let me show you what I'm talking about. You can see it kind of thins out there, and it just you can feel it in hand. It gets a little sharp on the edges. So that's one thing I wasn't a huge fan of. There also isn't any texture along the top here. I actually noticed that some of their new versions of the knife, some of these new special editions, they do have a little bit of jimping, so maybe Buck will go back and cut a little jimping out there. I think that would be nice. It's not a deal breaker for an EDC blade, but it never hurts to see it. The small version is actually pretty comfortable. It's a very small handle, so for me, I was only able to really get a 3.5. Maybe I could squeeze a 4-finger grip on there. I do have larger hands, so I think most people will have no problem getting a 4-finger grip, but it is a small handle. It does feel very comfortable, though. It's more comfortable than the large version. I haven't noticed any issues with the corners being overly sharp or anything like that. So I think the ergonomics are fine. Let's take a look at the deployment. We'll start with the large version here. So you've got 2 options. First off, you've got this thumb hole, or really it's a thumb oval, and it's mostly accessible in your right hand, and it's fairly easy to get at. I'm not able to really flick it out too fast, but it is accessible with 1 finger, with your thumb. On the left side, you've noticed that the hole here is partially blocked, so it's a little more difficult to get it out. It's not impossible, but I think for me, being a lefty, my first choice for deployment is the flipper, and it does take a little wrist action, especially when I'm wrangling camera equipment and stuff like that, but it does deploy smoothly and reliably. So with a little bit of a wrist flick, you can get this knife open pretty quick. So this is an EDC knife. It's not a tactical knife, and I think the deployment is pretty fair here. What you've got for washers are actually phosphor bronze washers. Always nice to see, and it's a fairly smooth knife. I've got no problems at all with smoothness. It's certainly smooth enough for my tastes. For the small knife, you've got the exact same thing, and the only thing I want to talk about with the small, was that you still get Foster Brown's washers even in the Select, which is their, like I said, the least expensive version. Okay, let's talk about lockup real quick. And for lockup, we've got a couple liner locks here, and you can see that lockup isn't the most consistent on these knives. On my my small version here, it locks up nice and early. On my large, we've got kind of a mid lockup. Both are acceptable. Neither of these have any blade play at all, and I find the lockup to be totally adequate. Alright guys, so I wanted to kind of wrap things up by saying a few things about fit and finish, and then also providing my final thoughts. So as far as fit and finish goes, I remember that when these knives came out in 2009, early 2010, people were having issues with the blades being off-center to the point where they were rubbing up against the liners of the knife, and then also issues with the tips being so close to the backspacers that they would actually get blunted on the backspacers. Now let me show you the blade center on both of mine. So we've got my my large Vantage, and then of course we've got the small one, and both have pretty good blade centering. I mean, this is pretty much dead on, I think, and neither of these knives have any issues with the tips getting blunted on the backspacers. So I believe Buck kind of realized that those were issues. They got some feedback from the consumers. They fixed up anybody's knives who had problems, apparently, and then they went and they tuned their manufacturing process to eliminate those issues. And I'll tell you guys, all in all, I think the fit and finish is quite nice on these knives. It's not the absolute best fit and finish. There's a couple minor things here and there, but for example, I don't know if we're going to be talking, if we get real nitpicky, you'll notice that one of these scales is not completely flush with the liners, minor things like that. But all in all, I think for $60 for this Buck Pro, you get S30V blade steel, you get G10 scales, you get a made in the USA knife. I mean, you're getting a lot of great stuff here, and for the money, I think the Buck Vantage has been really well done, and it offers a pretty nice value. So, because like I said, you're not going to see much of anything in the $50 range with S30V. So that alone is worth your attention, I think, and it's worth considering. So my final thoughts: I like the knives a lot. I think it's a very unique offering from Buck, and I was very pleased to get my hands on them. So that's the review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, this is Dan for BladeReviews.com. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions. Be safe, take care, and I'll be back soon with another knife review.